cost concept, historical cost principle. Whenever I just come to this particular concept, I ask my students to recap something about the capital expenditure. याद है कुछ किसी को regarding capital expenditure? What do you remember about the capital expenditure?
Sir, the money spent for buying goods which are used for the business for providing goods and services.
That was revenue expenditure. ठीक है, आंसर सही है, but मुझे क्वेश्चन चेंज करना पड़ेगा. But for capital expenditure is the amount that we pay for acquiring the asset. That is capital expenditure. But the point is, why do I recap this particular part? The capital expenditure means we also had some expenses like the installation cost, the transportation cost. So those expenses also will be a part of the capital expenditure, right? The same thing is over here. Okay. According to cost concepts, the assets are recorded in the books of accounts at their purchase price, which includes the cost of the purchase, the transportation cost, and the installation cost. All the three will be included over here. And that's why we will never pass any separate entry for these expenses like transportation and installation cost. These will be included in the purchase price to make a total cost of the asset. Example is there, a machinery has been purchased at a cost of rupees 40 lakh. The amount paid for machinery 40 lakhs, 20,000 is paid for transportation and 10,000 is paid for installation, right? Can you tell me what is the amount that will be recorded as a purchase price, as a cost price of the machinery? What amount should I write for machinery in my books of accounts?
40 lakh 30,000.
40 lakhs 30,000 is right. Okay. The amount of machinery recorded in the books of accounts will be 40 lakh 30,000. Just now I told you, for transportation, for installation, we need not to write any separate entry. Okay, the expenditures like the expenses which are paid for the first time and just once in the lifetime of the asset, those are non-recurring in nature, and those were capital expenditures also that we have discussed in chapter 2. And yes, when it comes to the cost concept, this simply says that you just include the purchase price and the expenses to make a cost of the asset, and that just one amount should be recorded in the books of accounts. We also have learned earlier that whenever we do accounting, we never consider the market price of the asset. Market price of asset is never considered, right? Because it is not verifiable, right? It is only the purchase price of the asset, which actually the amount actually paid forms the basis for recording in the books of accounts. It is also called historical cost. Historical cost क्यों कहा जाता है? Because the amount paid will not change, okay, irrespective of the price level changes. Okay, so because we have already gone through the limitations of accounting as well, it ignores the price level change, so it will not change as per the changes in the price level. We have paid for machinery purchase in 2015, suppose it is 50 lakhs, and in 2020 the value of the machinery maybe like building ले लेते हैं तो 80 lakhs है. So in my books of accounts I'll stick to 50 lakhs only because it was purchased in 2015 for 50 lakhs, and this is verifiable because I will be having some documents with me through which I'll be able to verify that this asset has been purchased for 50 lakhs irrespective of the market price, what are the market prices there, right? And that is why the historical क्यों कहा जाता है? Because it's a past record. It has been purchased 5 years back, 6 years back, so we just continue that price in the books of account. And yes, we just need to ensure that whatever the amount of depreciation is charged, that depreciation is charged on its cost price only, not on the market price. Okay. In real practice, historical cost does not mean that the asset will continue to be shown in the balance sheet for several years at its cost price or purchase price. No, it will have to be depreciated, right? Whatever the amount of depreciation is there, you keep on charging that, and whatever the remaining value is there, that is book value will be shown in the balance sheet on the asset side. How do you justify this? Okay, the historical cost concept. Okay, the reasons are over here. The cost price paid, the basic reason actually for following this historical cost is it is verifiable from the cost records, and the information stated in the balance sheet is not getting influenced by the personal biasness. How personal biasness will be affecting it? Because the market price will keep on changing from one price to another. So we never consider market price. And when you have cost records with you, okay, we have the document with us, the source document with us, we just can verify that at any point of time. So it is the Balance sheet is not getting affected with the personal biasness of the accountant. They just can't write anything in the books of accounts. Third, it is very difficult to determine the market price because it will vary from person to person. The next one is the same thing actually. The cost is stable, static in nature, and market price is variable in nature. It is very difficult to keep a track of the market price, so it is always better to stick to the cost price paid for purchase of an asset. We have some drawbacks also. Okay, the drawbacks are it does not show the true worth of the business and it may lead to the hidden profits during inflationary period. And assets are recorded in the books of accounts if money is paid for it. Okay, this is we'll be learning in class 12 as well. Okay, accounting standard 26 is there, AS 26, which simply says that like you are supposed to show any asset in the books of accounts if you have paid some money or money is worth in consideration to acquire the asset. So goodwill is also shown in the books, okay, only when it is purchased. These all things we'll discuss in class 12 again. Drawbacks, we continue. The third one is the profit disclosed by the income statement will be completely distorted during the inflationary period as depreciation charged will be inadequate in relation to the market price. Market price is increasing, but we stick to the cost price only for charging depreciation. So your profit will not be the actual profit. Also, the historical cost of the various assets are not comparable. The reason is very clear because these are purchased over a period of time and they all are clubbed together and just one amount is mentioned. So this information may not be of much use to the management and the end users of the accounting service. So these are all the drawbacks of cost principle, that is historical cost principle. Next is matching concept, matching principle. Accrual assumption में हमने ये पढ़ा था कि like the expenses and the revenues are to be recognized. Okay, when the services are rendered, when the sales is made, revenue has to be recognized, and the expenses are to be recognized when we purchase the goods or when we just acquire the services, not when actually the cash is paid or received for it, right? The same concept will continue over here also. But the point is, when you talk about the matching concept simply says that at the end of the year, when you are preparing profit and loss account, you debit all expenses over here and you credit all incomes over here in profit and loss account. Expenses के लिए भी दो बातें बोली जाती हैं, incomes के लिए भी दो बातें बोली जाती हैं. The thing is, expenses paid or not, okay, paid or unpaid. I'm sorry, please bear with me for the writing. And similarly for incomes, whether received or not received. Okay. So point is, we need to record all the expenses, we need to record all the incomes, whether paid or not, the expenses, whether received or not, the incomes of one accounting year only. I need to match the expenses with the incomes, expenses whether paid or not, incomes whether received or not, of the same accounting period. That is, if the accounting year is 2020, 2021, the expenses are recorded of that particular year. I need to ensure that the incomes are also related to this year only, that is 2020, 2021, right? So this is what is about the matching concept. We need to match the expenses with the revenues of the same accounting period. Why to do that? The reason is very clear. We need to arrive at the correct profit and loss of the business entity. What if we do not follow this? The things are very simple. If we do not follow the matching concept, it will be a practice of recording all the expenses and all the incomes, whether they relate to current year, previous year, next year. If we just keep on doing that, the actual profit and loss of the current year will not be known to us, right? So, according to matching concept, expenses incurred in an accounting period should be matched with the revenues earned during that period only, correct? And thus expenses and revenues must belong to same accounting period. Since the accounts are prepared on accrual basis, so expenses incurred in an accounting period are matched with the revenues recognized in that period only. The same thing has been repeated. Let us go through some points or some examples over here. Revenue is recognized, okay, when sales is made or services are rendered, right? And not when the cash is received. Similarly, for expenses is recognized when the goods or services has been used to generate the revenue, irrespective of the fact whether expenses is paid or not. This is what we have learned in accrual assumption. The same thing is over here. Second point is, we are given an example over here. The expenses such as salary, rent, insurance, etc. are recognized on the basis of the period, okay, to which year they belong to. Accordingly, we are going to write it in the books of accounts. A very simple example has been given over here. Salary for the month of March. For the month of March 2010 is paid, salary, right? Salary for the month of March 2010 is paid in the month of April 2010. The point is, in which accounting year are we going to consider this amount paid? The answer is, because salary is paid for the month of March, so it should be treated as an expense of March 2010, and it has to be the expense of the accounting year 2009-10, not 10-11, right? This thing has to be taken care of when we'll be doing the financial statements. Also, like when we start with chapter number 5, accounting equation, I'll remind you about this point again. A very simple example again, you talk about machinery whose useful life is estimated to be 5 years. So what happens? The 1/5 cost of the asset should be treated as an expense, and the remaining 4/5 part should be treated as an asset and to be shown in the balance sheet. And yes, insurance premium example is also given. Insurance premium, if it is paid, if any amount is paid related to next accounting year, in that case, whatever the amount is of next accounting year will be taken as the expense of the next year only. The remaining part will be taken of current year. I just give an example over here again. Total insurance paid, suppose it's 2,500. Out of 2,500, we are given the information that 500 is for next accounting year, next year. So the expense for my current year will be 2,500 minus 500. The remaining amount is 2,000. The 2,000 will be taken as an expense of insurance for current year. 500 will be taken as an expense of next year. Though like I have paid this 2,500 in current year itself. Yes, you also are supposed to match the cost of goods sold with the sales revenue. Matching concept implies that all the revenues earned, whether received or not, all the expenses incurred, whether paid or not, should be matched to ascertain the profit or loss of the accounting year. Next concept is dual aspect, the duality principle. It simply states that every business transaction has two aspects. That is, one is debit, other is credit. Okay, and dual aspect is the most important one amongst all the concepts, because this is a concept which lays down the foundation for the recording again, right? This concept says that every business transaction has two aspects. The two aspects, these are the two pillars of accountancy. One is a debit and other is a credit. And we need to ensure that when we start recording the books of accounts, whatever the amount is debited, the same amount has to be credited. So debit and credit has to be of equal amount. And we are simply told that for every debit, there will be a credit of equal amount in one or more than one account. Okay, it may happen that when we just come to chapter number 7, we'll realize this. If one of the account is getting debited for rupees 1,000, the same amount I need to have a credit. Say for example, in credit, I have two ledger accounts to be credited, right? So say one account is getting credited with rupees 300. So it is quite understood that the second account should be credited by rupees 700. Because I follow the dual aspect concept throughout the year, throughout the accounting, in fact, जब तक आप life में accountancy करोगे, तब तक ये concept follow करना है. So if I have debited 1,000, I need to ensure that I credit 1,000 rupees, whether it is one account or more than one account, or even vice versa. Vice versa में ये होगा कि credit में एक account है 1,000, the debit में दो account हो सकते हैं, दो से तीन भी हो सकते हैं. That doesn't matter. But we need to ensure that whatever the amount has been debited, the same amount has to be credited as per duality principle. The system in accounting is called the double entry system. A brief idea of this I have given to you in chapter number 1. And for example, Mohan has started business by investing rupees 1 lakh in cash. Now, if I have to think from the business point of view, cash comes in is one aspect, and who has given me cash? Mohan. So cash increases as well as the liability towards owner in the form of capital increases. So cash increases and capital also increases by the same amount, rupees 1 lakh. There are always two aspects of the transaction. One is the benefit received, the second is the benefit giver. And duality principle is commonly presented in the terms of accounting equation. I'm sure you remember the accounting equation. That is, all assets are equal to liabilities plus capital. The same equation is over here. right? Or if I just have to change this equation, it can be presented as capital is equal to assets minus liabilities. We have discussed this equation in the term like assets for liabilities, also for capital, right? 13th is the revenue recognition concept, the second last concept of the chapter. Revenue recognition concept is again somewhat related to the accrual assumption and the matching concept. Okay, the same two. Okay, what are the things we have learned for accrual assumption and matching concept? A part of that will be repeated over here. When you learn something about the accrual assumption, you talk about the revenues and the expenses. Over here also the revenues and the expenses are discussed. But when it comes to revenue recognition concept, you can see it is revenue only. So we will talk about revenue itself. We need to understand that when is the revenue recognized? Recognized का मतलब होता है कि when are we supposed to record in the books of accounts? When can we say that yes, इससे मुझे इतना amount लेना है? So I simply give you just one example over here, a simple example. Say for example, the date of sale of goods, right? Okay, takes place in the month of February, and the amount that we receive in cash from customer, it is in the month of April. So the very simple question in this transaction, okay, when can I say the revenue is recognized? The revenue recognition will be in the month of February when the actual sales is taking place. The legal obligation to receive the money from the customer is developed, right? So that is the day when I'll say the revenue is recognized. The revenue is considered to be realized when transaction has taken place and the obligation to receive its payment has been established. Recognition of revenue and receipt of payment are two different aspects. As I told you, the example I gave you, sale took place in the month of February, the amount is received in the month of April. So the revenue is recognized in the month of February and the receipt of payment is in the month of April. So let us understand this with that. For the example over here, the same example that I gave you, X sold goods to Y on 22nd of February and received payment in the month of May. Recognition of revenue will be in the month of February itself. That is a date of the sale, as a legal obligation to pay the amount has been established on this date. Now I want you to answer for second example, right? Read this example. Suppose X got an advance of rupees 10,000 in April for the sale of goods in the month of June. Now tell me, when should I recognize the revenue? April or June?
Sir, June.
June.
Yes, that's very correct. So this is the month of June only, wherein the legal obligation to receive the payment will be established, right, from the customer. And customer has given us the advance, right, just to ensure that the goods are to be supplied to him. Okay, but actually sales takes place in the month of June, so June is the right time to consider the recognition of the revenue. Generally, revenue is recognized at the point of sales only when the title of goods passes from the seller to the buyer and the buyer is liable to pay the payment, make the payment with the amount, right? But we have some exceptions. Two examples are there. What are the exceptions over here to the revenue recognition concept? अभी हमने क्या सीखा है कि like whenever the sales is taking place, that is a day. Okay, that is a time when we say the revenue has been recognized. But when you talk about the first example over here, talk about the hire purchase system. Hire purchase system, I'll simply make it as an installment system. Then how are we going to treat this? Because the payment of installments by the buyer of such goods in future is uncertain, which amount should be recorded as a revenue recognized in that particular year? It has to be recorded on the proportionate basis. And yes, we know like when we just purchase anything on installment, the seller do repurchase the goods or any asset sold to the buyer in case of default, right? So it is difficult to determine the revenue amount at the time of making sales. Whatever the accounting period is there, in that whatever the proportionate amount is getting due from the customer, so that amount can be said as the revenue is recognized. Okay, say for example, if I have purchased the asset, suppose I'm the seller, right? 50,000 का कोई asset मैंने sale किया है. I have received the down payment of rupees 5,000 and the installments due for the first year is rupees 15,000 due. Receive की बात नहीं कर रहा मैं. Okay, so what is the revenue recognized? 50 या फिर 20? The answer is 20, not 50. 50,000 मैं sale में नहीं लिखूंगा. I'll record 5 plus 20, 15, that's 20. फिर उसमें से जितना अमाउंट मिला वो अलग बात है. So whatever the amount is getting due in that particular accounting period, that is what is all about the revenue recognized under hire purchase system. We have one more example. In case of long-term contracts, the contract to construct a building may take more than 1 year. So we just can't wait for all the 3 years. The example of 3 years is taken over here. We just can't wait for the 3 years to get the building constructed fully, and then we realize the money from the contractee, right? We can't do that. So what happens here, again over here, on the proportionate basis, whatever the work is done on yearly basis, accordingly we are going to recognize the revenue. In such cases also, proportionate amount of the revenue based on the part of the contract completed at the end of the accounting year is treated as recognized. The same thing what we have discussed in under hire purchase system. The same example is over here. Finally, the last concept, that is verifiable objective concept. This concept requires that the accounting transactions should be recorded in an objective manner, and they should be free from the personal biasness of the accountant, right? And the books of accounts can be free from the personal biasness of the accountant or the owner only when they are well supported by the documentary evidence, right? And examples like we have discussed earlier also, for the purchase of goods for cash, there should be a cash memo. In case of credit purchase of goods, there will be an invoice or the copy of the delivery challan. Similarly, if machine has been purchased, so invoice will be there. So for every single transaction, we will be having some or the other evidence of a transaction, and that is the source document. So we need to ensure that whatever we record in the books of accounts is well supported by the source document, the vouchers, and then only we will say that our books of accounts are free from the personal biasness and the accounting information is reliable, right? The basic reason for adoption of historical cost also is the same reason, because the cost that we have paid is verifiable and it is based on the objectivity. If you talk about purchase of an asset, whatever the documents are there with us, the purchase documents are there, so those can act as a proof. Those are available to verify the things. If so and so asset was purchased on so and so date, and that is the reason, like we already have gone through the justification of the historical cost. The same thing we have discussed, right? Because we have the proper records with us, because we have the proper documents with us, so we should stick to the historical cost, not the market price, because market price will be variable in nature and it is not verifiable.